In this video, I'm going to be giving an overview of the steps for Part A of the Solar Potential Map assignment. On the D2L content page, there's a link to this solar potential map. If you click on the link, you'll be brought to the City of Calgary Solar Potential Map webpage. That's what you see right here. As you can see, the map is a little bit cluttered and we have to clean it up a little bit. If you click on the disclaimer, we can close it down. We can also shut down the legend by clicking on the title bar. What you need to do is then figure out and determine a building that you would like to analyze. And I'd highly suggest that you take a look at your own home. So I'm going to type in an address and click on the magnifying glass, and that's going to zoom to my building. As you can see, I'm really zoomed out right now. So if I click on the zoom to button, that's going to bring me a little bit closer to that building that I want to analyze. Now notice if we look down here, we see that the scale is from 0 to 40 meters. I found for most buildings, a scale of 0 to 20 meters is more beneficial. Unless you're analyzing a building like a school that's really large, the 0 to 20 meter scale is a little bit more appropriate. So if we click on the plus sign, that's going to bring us closer to our building. Now I can close down this dialog box, and what I need to do is I need to drag my building over towards the scale. We're going to be using that scale to estimate the areas of the various different yield zones. So I'm going to drag this over here, drag it close by, and then I'm going to have to use the screen capture software that's built into your operating system. If you're on a Windows computer, it usually uses the sniping tool. If you're on a Mac, you can usually use the hotkeys. So I'm on a Mac, so I'm going to choose Command-Shift-4, and that's going to bring up my screen capture software. And I'm going to get my cursor positioned where I want it, click down and drag, and I'm going to try to capture the building and the scale in my screenshot. Now that image would be really small, and when you're trying to estimate the size of the areas, it's better to use a larger image. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to paste that image into Word. So I'm going to open up Microsoft Word. I'm going to choose the picture button, and I'm going to insert a picture from File. And I'm going to have to go to my desktop. And there's my picture right there. Choosing the insert button, there we go. There's a picture that I took with the screen capture software. Now I need to make this larger so I can make it more easy to analyze. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold down the Shift button, because that's going to keep the ratios of the length and the width the same and scale things correctly. So holding down Shift, I'm going to go to a corner and I'm going to make it bigger. And now I have a bigger area that I can work with. Now, what I would suggest that you do now is take a look at your building and see, what does it look like? How many different yield zones, how many different colors are on your building? If your building is really complicated, then you might want to choose something that's a little bit easier to analyze. I'm choosing a bungalow from the 60s that has a typical triangular roof, not a bunch of different slopes, and it shows that there's just a few different colors that I'll need to analyze. If you choose your home and it has a complex roof design, it's probably going to mean that you're going to have a lot of different yield zones. And depending on the challenge that you're up to, you might want to choose a different building that's a little bit easier to analyze. Most buildings are going to have at least 3 different zones. But make that evaluation before you get too far into the project. So now that I've enlarged my building, what I can just do is go File, Print, and that'll allow me to print off this page. I can cut out the scale, and then I need to draw my zones on my building. I would recommend that you draw these by hand. You can use software, though it's a little bit more difficult. And once you've drawn the zones, you can use that cutout scale to estimate the size of them. Hold the scale right up to the zone, estimate its size and length, and then use the area formula for the shape that you've drawn to determine the area size. Now I'm going to attempt to do this digitally, and I have some different shapes already pre-drawn, and I'll just show you how I'm doing this. So I'm just going to shape my drawings right here, and when you're drawing them, or when you're drawing your shapes, estimation is your friend. So you're not trying to make this exact. This is a real world scenario. So I'm going to try to just draw these the best I can into my various shapes, and trying to estimate and cover everything in that shape and see how it goes. As I said, I picked the building on purpose that was a little bit easier to analyze, and if yours building is a little bit more complex, you're going to have to use a little bit more math, or you might just have to choose a different building. But there's my various zones. If I cut out the scale, I'd be able to hold that up and estimate the length and width, and then I could figure out the area. If you have any questions, contact your teacher within private discussions.